Cost of living crisis forces student COVID generation to live at home. The Daily Express is running with threat to quit rights treaty if Rwanda blocked again. The Mirror has ITV hit by more bullying claims, and the Eye is running with new talks on tented camp for migrants in Essex amid Tory splits on crackdown. The Metro is leading with BBC Comic is held for historic offences, and those were your front pages. So we're going to kick off with Thursday's Daily Mail. Josh, what are they running with?
Rise of the 30-something women who have never had a boyfriend.
OK.
That's the big story.
No, I think that's just the strap at the top about what's in Female magazine.
But that's really interesting, though, don't you think?
I think is that the bit you read, the female supplement?
I go straight to Female. That's my dog.
What's wrong with these women? Do we find out within?
Well, it's just to learn. They educate me, and I'm like, yeah, what is wrong with these 30-year-old women? They've got two pictures of women here. I believe they're women, and they're like, why are they trying to say they're not attractive enough to get a boyfriend? What do you think?
What's the feminine equivalent of an incel?
Femcel.
A femcel.
Oh.
So it's just about femcels.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Of course you'd know.
And how fast I said it was
very quick, very suspiciously quick. What about this headline? Have we finally turned corner on mortgage misery?
You sure you don't want to talk about this?
I'm pretty sure I'm done with the rise of 30-something women without boyfriends.
All right, then. Well, when they do get a boyfriend, maybe they'll be able to get a mortgage. But
nice segue.
Have we finally turned...
Leo's in the building.
Yeah, thank you. Have we finally turned corner on mortgage misery? So, obviously, we've had sort of record interest rates for mortgages.
Yes.
What record compared to the last sort of 10 years or so? Yeah. And but it looks like maybe they peaked, and they're hoping now. There's like it seems that Halifax, who are the largest lenders in the country, they blinked first. And they've dropped it by 0.71 percentage points, and hopefully that's going to lead to more banks.
Yeah, we're looking at a mortgage price war, which could be a good thing for first-time home buyers.
That would be nice. It's making me think I should wait. I'm trying to buy...
You're trying to get a mortgage now, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if it can be done. And I'm also thinking everyone says house prices are going down.
Yes.
Normally, when everyone says something, that means they're wrong. That's how I've lived my life. But everyone's saying it's got to happen. But when these interest rates kick in, the market hasn't felt it yet, because it hasn't quite happened yet.
It's all about timing. You know what's going to happen, Nick. You're going to get yourself a house and a mortgage, and suddenly the prices will plummet the day after.
Of course.
Of course they will.
You know what? You should steal more of these caps, and then we can sell them, and then we can make the money.
I think you're obsessed with these caps, Josh. They're not as good as you think they are. They suit you. There we go.
Thank you.
They're very
the way to do
jaunty.
it.
Very jaunty. OK, can we have a look at the front cover of The Guardian, Nick? What are they leading with on Thursday?
They've got cost of living crisis forces student COVID generation to live at home.
Is that what they're called now, officially, COVID generation?
Bit of a cop-out, isn't it? Because I would call them the lockdown generation. Really, you know...
What would Lewis Schaefer call them?
Well, he'd call them
non-existent generation.
Centralised death of love generation. But it didn't need to happen, so I don't think we can blame COVID. But, OK, Guardian wants to blame COVID. And there are a number of other factors, aren't there, really, let's be honest. So it's basically 1 in 3 students starting university this year may opt to live at home.
Wow.
Great news for their parents. And as many as 34% of 18-year-old school leavers could stay at home. So, yeah... It's not great, but it's just part of a wider trend, isn't it?
It's depressing, though, isn't it, as well? Because, I mean, university is the time when you're meant to go away. When I went to university, I deliberately chose the university as far away from possible from where I lived. And part of the experience is surely you don't want to live at home and then go in and take lectures and then be... Surely.
See, I did something better than you. I went to a university in the same city, but, like, the other side of the city, so I could still go home at weekends and get the good stuff.
Oh, I see. And get your laundry done.
And whatever. And still
I bet you did.
It sounds like a very big city.
Yeah, you know, if our cleaner was in. And, and also live in halls of residence and have that. But halls of residence now is so expensive. They charge, you know, it's all private firms now, and they just rake it in.
Is it just that the lockdown meant that young people are now, they're so accustomed to just being inside, being at home, that they don't want to go anywhere?
I don't think it is a cultural thing. I think it's just purely a financial thing. It was 20% before, now it's up to 34%. Universities are getting more and more expensive. They're going to have to pay back for a longer part of their life.
Yeah, and of course, when I was at university, I got a full grant. You used to get grants back in the day.
There is a solution, though, that presents itself. Don't go to university. So you see, you know, life finds a way. Universities have also completely collapsed in value at a pointless overprice.
That's true.
So why even go?
And they're oversubscribed because lots of people go there when they don't really need to, when it's not really appropriate. There's apprenticesticeships you can do. There's all sorts of other things.
But my woodwork degree has held me in good stead.
It has indeed. I mean, you fixed that mug tree earlier.
He made that cap.
And he made the cap. Right, we're going to move on to the front cover of The Express. Josh, what is The Express leading with on Thursday?
Something about immigration, surprise,
Looks
surprise.
like it.
Hey, go Express. Threat to quit rights treaty if Rwanda blocked again. So this is the immigration minister,
Yes.
Robert Jenrick, and he's basically saying, yeah, we're going to leave the European Convention of Human Rights. It's got nothing to do with the EU, by the way.
Yes, it
something
predates the EU.
Yeah, predates the EU. It's something that actually Britain had a big hand in creating.
Yeah.
It helps all of us, all of our human rights. He's come ahead and said that. Now, if you get to the end of the article, they're basically going to go, actually, Number 10 has distanced himself from this. But this is the desperation of the Tory government.
But is it, Josh, because, I mean, is it not the case that since the ECHR prevented the flight to Rwanda at the 11th hour, that the government is actually rethinking this and thinking, well, they shouldn't really have that kind of say over our judicial system?
Well, the point of it is that we will be able to do it. It's actually our Supreme Court who has stopped them because they said that Rwanda is not a safe country. Once it's put through or acknowledged as a safe country, or they find a safe country, then technically this can go ahead. I would argue, and this is what the other papers have argued, is that this is more of a political decision because this is a red line. This is something that the Labour Party is not going to cross in terms of threatening to leave the EHRC because the fact is it benefits all of us.
Would, Nick, leaving the ECHR actually make it easier to deal with the situation of boats over the channel?
Well, we don't know, but it might be worth trying because we have to do something. See, Robert Jenrick is just saying he's prepared to do whatever's necessary because this is an emergency situation. Now, the Law Society have described it as using a sledgehammer to crack a nut.
Yeah.
But it's not really a nut, is it? Because it's such a big problem. It's going to be a problem for all of Europe, all of the West in the coming years. I think we have to get mature about it, and we have to consider all options. You know, The Guardian was saying, oh, well, we'll be in an outlier with just Russia and us, but that's just a sort of Guardian way of putting it.
But that is true.
But Josh,
the thing is whether it's necessary.
Something needs to be done.
No, totally. But the question is, if there's the Law Society is basically saying this is not it because it's not actually, and it's actually going to hurt the rest of us because these are our human rights that would be.
Is it not possible for us to have human rights without outsourcing the decision making to a European power?
Well, it's possible, but this has been a long-term agreement that has helped us through that time.
That's just what I'm very mistrustful of that because during the Brexit debate we constantly had this idea that, oh well, what about all this legislation that protects our rights? But a lot of the legislation were predated the EU, for a start, things like equal pay, and also we can develop our own legislation to cover that.
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't see this as an EU issue as opposed to this is something that needs to be sorted. And arguably, if the Tory government had put the money into our immigration department, we would be able to process these a lot quicker. They wouldn't have such a big backlog. That's the real issue.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's an EU issue. I'm saying it's the principle. Why can't we handle our own human rights issues?
Yeah, but this is but the point is, it's human rights issues as a, it's bigger than Britain.
Well, I'm not so
Human
sure.
rights.
Not so sure. Anyway, we're going to move on. What about this in the Daily Star? Always like to cover the Star, Nick.
Yeah, this is important. It's actually,
In what?
It's actually...
What do you mean?
I thought it was a sex joke.
I didn't actually get it because I don't have a filthy mind
because
like you.
because I read the Daily Star. It's a lot of OnlyFans pictures.
He's
and
only
whatnot.
funny with the cap.
Okay.
So the Daily Star, it's relatively serious for the Daily Star. It's we're all taking naps, doing the gardening, and even enjoying rumpy-pumpy, which is a posh term, when we should be working from home. So basically, there's a few papers have it. It's that 1 in 8 Britons have had sex on company time.
How
while
do they
working from
know?
home. I know, it's shocking. And they're calling it a hybrid working pattern, which is a mixture of work, gardening and sex, apparently. People are of course they are. They're at home for 8 hours a day. They're not going to work for that whole time.
No.
It's obvious. I mean, it's obvious. Weird thing about work from home, it's kind of grim, actually. You think it's going to be fun, but if you want to do like your own podcast or you're writing an article, like, that's fun. But when you're on the clock working for someone, but you're at home, it's like being on house arrest.
Yeah, but it's great if you can. I mean, I can't do DIY or sex. So, and I don't have a garden.
So you get loads of work done?
Yeah, basically, that's
OK, but what about this? I mean, they're talking about napping at home, but research shows continually that if you have a nap during the day, you are much, much more productive in the afternoon. In fact, when I was a school teacher, I used to go back to the boarding house during my free period, have a 20-minute nap, and then I'd be on fire after that. So why don't we do that? Why don't we say this is a good thing?
I believe that absolutely is a good thing, and this has been the constant battle since lockdown and whatnot in terms of this hybrid model. But by the way, this is one of those polls which has become an article. Toner Giant, the send out
story. The problem is, Andrew, if you went back and tried to do a bit of gardening in your 20 minutes, that's where it would fall.
Oh, I see. That would be an issue.
Start the gardening, you're planting trees, and suddenly the kids are abandoned.
But you know, in some Japanese businesses, they have those pods in the sort of the companies, and you can go and nap for 10 minutes, do a power nap, and then get back to work because they recognise that this is a really good thing.
Absolutely, not longer than 20 minutes. By the way, they also said it's quite interesting that 34% of BBC Breakfast's entire viewership is workers, people working, watching telly.
Watching TV.
48% tuning into Good Morning Britain.
Oh, well, look, they shouldn't be doing that.
So I just want to say, anybody who's at work watching us, hello.
GB
Yeah.
News.
GB News, might as well go
On the cat.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say I disapprove of what you're doing. Get back to work. OK, coming up in the next section, the PSNI declare a critical incident and Labour have been accused of increasing dangerous driving. Stay tuned.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel,
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Thursday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle. I'm here tonight with Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. So let's continue with the stories now. We're going to go to Thursday's Express. Josh, great news for pensioners.
Yes, state pension triple lock hike set to smash inflation, but may trigger a huge backlash. So this is the never-ending debate over the triple lock.
Yes.
And essentially it was...
Describe what the triple lock is.
The triple lock is basically pensions are either going to be going up by 2.5%,
yes,
or inflation or wages.
OK.
One of those, so it guarantees, so whichever the highest of those
So pensioners are going to be OK, in other words?
Yeah, essentially, but it was frozen in 2022 to 23.
And caused a bit of a problem when it was frozen.
Yeah, it did cause a bit of a problem, but last year it went up by 10%, so they were quids in. This year what's going to happen is, interestingly, they take it from September, the inflation rate, and everyone was assuming that it was going to be still quite high, but it's actually going to be lower than what the wage increases. So it basically means that they're going to, pensioners are going to be getting about an extra, I think, £700.
Yes.
£800, up to 11,000. And then what's going to happen, weirdly, they're saying, is in a couple of years, it looks like they might start having to pay taxes because the tax threshold is like only about £12,000 or whatever.
I see.
So there's going to be this weird crossover period.
OK, but Nick, you know, I think the hallmark of a civilization is how well we treat our most vulnerable, including our elderly. So it's surely right that they are properly remunerated.
That's one argument. The other argument is it's in place.
We should leave them in the cold.
Well, no, the other argument is it's there because they vote Tory and that they're boomers who already have all the property and maybe they don't need it. And people say it's an unworkable policy. Many people say this. Former Lib Dem guy said it was unworkable. Someone else suggested a double lock where you take out the earnings element, but you still have the inflation element. So there's different solutions. A lot of people think... I mean, I know, obviously, when you phrase it like that, I look like a monster. But,
that was the intention.
But it's also not very... If you were self-employed, you don't get it. My parents don't go to a pension because they were largely self-employed.
But doesn't a state pension only go to people who don't have an existing pension or existing income? So it isn't like old people who've got lots of money who don't need it.
Yeah, there's that, but...
You have to have earned enough. You have to have contributed enough to...
Right.
The question is it fair on younger people? And the question is also how we afford it, because pension costs went up from... They went up £6 billion to 110 billion last year, and they're projected to be 135 billion by 2025.
Right.
So it's how do you pay for that?
Yeah, well, we're paying for it and whatever. And, yeah, it's interesting. So UK wages are on a course, to increase faster than prices. Obviously in this room.
Well, speak for yourself. Right, we're going to move on to the Telegraph now. And it sounds like Northern Ireland's chief constables had a long day. Nick, this is an incredible story.
Well, it's incredible in a sort of bad way, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, like I can't believe this happened kind of way.
Yeah,
like...
it's the PSNI...
I wasn't saying it's a good thing.
No, I got that. I was just wondering what to say. But yeah, it declares... I was wondering if it was because of your interest in Northern Ireland, but you just mean because it's shocking. Basically what's happening is the police service in Northern Ireland, PSNI to you and me, Andrew, have accidentally revealed people's surnames, initials, ranks, grades, work locations, or departments.
Just everything?
Yes, except their private addresses. That was the only thing they didn't reveal. By accident, it was up there for a period of 3 hours before it was removed, and they're basically going, whoops, my bad, bro.
That's quite a leak. You know, given the security concerns in Northern Ireland, which are ongoing, the idea of the PSNI having all of their data... I mean, everything about the way the organisation works, every department that everyone's in, this is like a gift to any dissident.
Well, exactly. But the positive is that it should be easy to identify who's responsible.
Right. Well, aren't the PSNI responsible?
Well, but we now know who works there, so...
it was a joke.
It was.
You were attempting a joke.
Sometimes
I got it.
Thanks, mate. That's it.
But I mean,
I laughed inside.
You know, we are lucky that this is happening now and it didn't happen in the midst of the troubles.
No, of course.
When that would have been absolutely...
But also what we don't know is who requested this FOI.
Yeah, but they were requesting for something else, from what I understand. They weren't requesting all of this information.
But that would be the laziest hacker in the world.
We requested all this. We have all the details of the staff and where they live. No, they requested something else and they released it by accident.
I mean, I don't think dissident groups were requesting private information about police officers.
it could be like a double, triple bluff.
I mean, the thing about this stuff is, I mean, people think that, because the troubles are ostensibly over, but, there was that guy shot in Omagh, that police officer shot in Omagh, seriously injured back in February. The threat is still there. Police officers in Northern Ireland still check under their cars for explosive devices. The dissident groups haven't gone away. They're still... So this stuff is a major problem, a major security leak. 300 police officers killed during the Troubles. They have to be very careful.
Absolutely. And people are also going to know their middle initials now as well.
And so they can...
Well, I'm just saying they might be like... That's what a bit embarrassing. Yeah, but I mean...
There's the embarrassment.
That would be nice if pieces got to that level where that's the big concern.
Where that is the concern. I'm afraid it's not, Josh. But we're going to move on to Thursday's Telegraph now. And what's this about Welsh speed limits?
It's pretty much what you just said, Andrew. It's Welsh...
No, I want the details of the Welsh speed limits.
It's exactly what it says on the tin. Welsh Labour's 20-mile-per-hour speed limit has increased dangerous driving, so it's the unintended consequences of incredibly slow driving. Taxi drivers hate it. Everyone hates it. We hate it in London. They hate it in Wales. And what it's done is it's seen dangerous overtaking increase, tailgating, people can't cross, people are too close to people. I've already said that one. They're actually using red ribbons. This is how serious it is. They're putting red ribbons on their cars in protest.
The cars have HIV?
Exactly. And it's... and people are... Some people, the moderates are saying it's OK on the arterial road because... they should at least... Sorry, the opposite. They should at least stay at 30 and everything else can be 20. But they're saying that is disastrous.
Can I just give a counter view here, Nick? So you've got all these people cutting into each other, driving dangerously because they're not respecting the new 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. You've got road rage incidents. Isn't the reason why this has increased dangerous driving is because people aren't abiding with the new rules?
Well, they're expecting it, they're doing it, but with resentment and tailgating, But yes, but the other thing is you can't cross, though. It is apparently a serious problem because everyone's so near to each other, because they're so... Yeah, I suppose if they really just followed the only a fool breaks a 2-second rule, and then they're all going
stopping
20.
distance,
yeah,
all of that.
But no one's like
that. No, because Josh, the thing is, right? I've been driving in London recently, central London, where it's now 20 mile an hour.
Yeah.
And at first I was annoyed because, you know, I'm not getting home as quick. But now... But no, now I think, well, actually, if I hit an antelope or something, or, you know...
You'll only bruise it.
I'll only bruise it.
Yeah, and the thing is that this is also all anecdotal. They haven't actually got any hard information here.
Right.
And certainly in places like central London and whatnot, you actually do get to your destination about the same time anyway, regardless. There are arguments for maybe making this time specific, so there's no need to do it at 3 in the morning or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, as it says here, there are some roads, arterial roads, where actually this is unnecessary and there aren't residences around.
But it does save lives, Nick.
Well... This is saying it doesn't, and it's counterproductive. But can I just say one more thing? The Welsh Conservative Shadow Transport Minister said the Labour government's last time to U-turn, which was a pun, on this anti-driver, anti-worker, anti-road agenda. Who's anti-road? Like, I'm done with tarmac, guys. That's it for me. Anti-road.
It's road phobia.
Yeah, classic.
I would say that we should spread this out across the country on motorways. Motorways should be just 20 mile an hour with a lane for if you're in a rush.
So you get,
if you've been on the M1 over the last 10 years, it has been about 20 miles an hour.
But I'm just saying, like, I think of all the lives that we've
part
saved.
of the post-COVID safety-obsessed generation.
Yes, because fast cars are dangerous. If you've ever been hit by one, you'll know what I'm talking
certainly
about.
when you're driving.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's for people like me. OK, we're going to move on to Thursday's Mirror now, Josh. And don't you hate it when your dad gets your name wrong?
Well, indeed, if it is his dad. Whoa, hey now.
Whoa.
So, uh-oh.
What are we talking about here, Josh? We're talking about Prince Harry.
What? You said it, not me. Prince Harry's title has been changed on Royal Mail website after huge mistake. Not just a little mistake, a huge mistake.
Did they call him sort of like Sigourney?
No, they basically said they've included the HRH for a couple of years.
So what?
I know, it's so ridiculous. And what's so genius about this is that they're like, the Express originally found this, and it's like, what a scoop for the Express to go on the website and see that they had HRH. But then what's also relatively amusing is Prince Andrew's been moved down to the bottom of all the royals, and now these guys have been moved down. So there's this. You can use the website to find out where they are in standing.
I mean, Nick, like the fact that no one noticed for 2 years does suggest that it doesn't matter.
It's not massive, but they've changed it now, and don't worry, they've changed it from HRH to SOB, which is a great joke. In America, that joke works better, but it would have landed. That would have killed in New York City. It would have killed. A great joke. So, what they've actually changed it to is the Duke of Sussex is fifth in line to the throne, and the younger son of the King of Diana, Princess. It's just a kind of. Some bloke, do you know what I mean? That's playing who he is. It's a complete diss now.
Is this really a story about just
It's a non-story.
A typo on the internet.
That's the problem with this.
But also, this should have been something that they could have sorted out. Like, it doesn't... This is... You know, you guys have got websites. You just literally just changed a few words. I don't... It's ridiculous.
Harry doesn't care.
Oh, he's crying.
He cares.
He cares. He cares.
He's writing a whole book about this.
Big time.
This is his new book.
Yeah, new chapter.
Former HRH.
OK, well, look, that is the end of part 2, but do join us in part 3 for Mizzy's thwarted return, a novel solution to prison overcrowding, and problematic shop decor. Do not go anywhere.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It is briefly warmer, temperatures reaching mid to high 20s, plenty of sunny spells. But there will be some rain moving into the far west later on Thursday. Looking at the bigger picture, a brief spell of warmer weather, but into the weekend, this area of low pressure starts to move in, introduces something a little bit fresher, particularly across the north and the west. So looking at the end of Wednesday, still some cloud across western areas, a bit murky around some coast, but plenty of clear spells taking us into the early hours and most places dry. Quite a warm night to come though, temperatures for most holding up around 15, 16 degrees, perhaps 1 or 2 spots no lower than 17 or 18 Celsius. For most Thursday mornings, a bright start, plenty of sunny spells. There'll be some low cloud that takes its time to lift and break, and then the day ahead looking fine and dry for many, though the cloud does start to increase across the far west. By the end of the day, perhaps 1 or 2 showers developing over the higher ground of Wales, and temperatures lifting 27, 28, possibly even 29 Celsius. We've not seen these numbers for quite some time, so quite a warm feeling day. Into Friday though, a weak weather front pushes its way east across the country first thing, introducing then slightly fresher conditions into the afternoon, a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Some of these showers could be heavy towards the northwest of the UK, and temperatures still around 25 or 26 towards the southeast, but fresher into the weekend.
That warm feeling inside. From boxed boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Thursday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle and I'm joined tonight by Josh Howie and the big dog Nick Dixon. We're looking at Thursday's Daily Mail now, and this Mizzy character, Nick, is having a comeback.
They're sort of pinning it on young Mizzy, but it's not really Mizzy. It's police officers punched in the face by thug as chaos erupts in Oxford Street TikTok crime wave. But really, it did come about from a TikTok fuel campaign, but and 5 people were arrested, but it wasn't clear if Mizzy was really taking part.
But he was nearby.
He was nearby.
But you have changed your... Since Mizzy started following you on Twitter...
I've changed my tune on Mizzy because... So Mizzy follows me on Twitter. Hello to Mizzy. And he's had some struggles recently. He's been sectioned recently. And he seems to be having some...
Was that the final nail in the coffin? They were like, you follow Nick Dixon on Twitter?
Yeah, and then they sectioned.
But Nick, you've got to admit, he's intimidated some people.
I've been very harsh against Mizzy in the past. He's done some terrible things, but I'm trying to give him a chance to rehabilitate. But and he's not, and let's be very fair to him, he's not necessarily involved in this.
No, this is just a TikTok campaign where they're saying rob JD Sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Are young people that impressionable that they'll just go out and do it?
It's 2 major trends now in our country. It's stupid social media trends and general decline of the country coming together.
I mean, this is pretty scary stuff. Like, if young people just think, they'll go off and rob a sports shop because someone told them to. Yeah. And I like to think that humanity's not like that we're not like drones, but these people apparently are.
Well, it's young people, and they are idiots, and it's young boys in particular.
Yeah.
And they're idiots. Yeah. I was an idiot. I'm still kind of an idiot.
Yeah, but you didn't rob any JD Sports.
Yeah, but that's because I didn't have Mizzy following me. He's the one we need to be watching out for. Yeah, Nick would be straight down there.
So you just think this is the inevitability of male youth?
I think it's male youth combined with social media.
Yeah. Okay,
and
interesting.
no parenting.
Yeah, because you didn't have social media when you were young, Andrew. I'm sure when you were reading your poetry, if any of those books had said Rob JD's book, you'd have been like, firstly, why is that? What's that doing in Pope? But then you'd have gone and done it.
I'm surprised you know what JD Sports is.
Well, I did some research before the show.
Oh, OK.
And apparently it's a shop that sells footballs and other attire.
Exactly.
That's not... A football isn't attire, Andrew.
Isn't it? It can be, depending what you do with it.
True.
Yeah, no, it's a sports shop.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to a topic I'm more accustomed with. This is the Times now. What's this one about? Home ownership is my favourite subject, Nick.
Yes, and my favourite at the moment, even though it's a dream, Andrew. It's 4 in 10 under 40s give up on home ownership. And this
for good?
Yes, and they're a generation of guppies. Now, this comes from yuppie, and you think this is weird because yuppie, the Y stands for young, meaning young urban professionals. And you think, what does the G stand for in guppies? It seems to be given up on property. So they've just given up completely. So that's where the G comes from.
Guppies? Oh, I thought it was gangster.
It looks as if they've given up on property, so that's as far as I can figure out. Or maybe because they're geriatric, because they're so old and they still can't get it. But I think it's the given up aspect. So it's very, very depressing. And it's basically 18 to 39-year-olds were asked by Zoopla, you know, will you ever own a home? And 20% said they would, but 40% said they never would. So it's very, very bleak, and we all know this is... And also, the UK is one of the most difficult places to organise, to sell and buy a house. It's just so Byzantine complexity. The amount of documents and solicitors just throwing away money all over the place. It's horrendous. And then anyone can pull out at any time.
So these young people just can't get onto the property ladder, and they've certainly given up any aspirations.
Well, I can't even get on, and they've got no chance.
Yeah, and this is people earning £60,000 a year.
Yes, that's what surprised me.
It is mad, and it's so unfair because rents are so astronomical that there is no chance, and that's why you have all these people moving back in their parents. The only reason we own our flat is because I was able to move in with my grandma, and I got married and had a baby there. Yeah. And that's what it took to save the deposit.
But is it just that people want to live in sort of London and the big cities? Couldn't they move to, like, Lowestoft or something?
There needs to be, like, a grandma service. You can move in with, like, Josh's grandma, someone's grandma, and you stay there for a bit.
Take care of them, make sure they get the right pills and whatnot.
That could work, actually.
That would be
that's people are lonely.
That would be nice for old people.
They don't need the triple lot pension because you can help
There we go,
them
we're
out.
solving all the problems here.
Win-win.
Yeah. There we go. That's what you watch headliners for. We're going to move on to Thursday's Mirror now, Josh, and a democratic solution to prison overcrowding.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. Voters to be asked if it's worth locking up criminals in bizarre Tory plans. So this is the Justice Secretary's department have commissioned, and I think it's for £90,000 or so, £83,000 a contract out there to basically ask members of the public what crimes do you think people should be let out of jail with so that they don't look particularly unpopular when they do let people out of jail, because we have massive shortage of spaces in our jails, because guess what? The Tories haven't built the spaces they
also,
promised
there's
they
the
would
problem
build.
with too many criminals. So something's going
there
on
are two things going on together, but Tories promised all these extra spaces. They haven't built it. They haven't done the investment, and thus they're having to use like regular jails in prison, in police cells and whatnot.
This is scary. I mean, Nick, this article talks specifically about two examples. One guy, Fabian Greco, received a suspended sentence for punching and kicking a man in a road rage incident, and then another guy, a people trafficker, who threw a mug of boiling liquid at a prison officer, avoided a jail sentence. They're not putting criminals who do that kind of thing in jail because they don't have space. Why don't we put them in with grandma, like you said before?
The fact that
Have you got any barges?
Good idea. The fact that a people trafficker throwing boiling hot liquid at a prison officer doesn't warrant prison. And it says there'll always be enough prison places to keep the British people safe. We're not safe now. And this idea of quantifying the public's willingness to pay to punish offenders of each crime. You ask the public, it's basically like, touched a kid, 100 quid. That's the system. They're going to say, what would you pay for?
So it's tough on popular crime is the new slogan.
It's kind of madness. I mean, there are activists who say that we should abolish all prisons altogether, and that these are...
Some of them have appeared on this channel.
Have they indeed? Yeah, I mean, so do we, what we have to do something, because, like Nick says or implies, that, these people shouldn't be out there in the public because they're a danger to all of us.
Absolutely, and that's why we should have spent this last 13 years investing in these spaces. By the way, at the end of the article, there's one of my favourite things in article genre where they go, actually, Miss Chalk said, no, we didn't commission it, it's got nothing to do with us, it was just a thing that everyone was doing. So he basically just totally blows the article apart.
OK, they always do that just at the end, don't
Just right at the end there.
Yeah, OK, well, we're going to close this section now with The Guardian and problematic artwork. Nick.
I'm going to get in trouble here. So this is...
That's why I gave it to you.
Surrey shop faces racism allegations over picture of tobacco plantation, and this was Miss Harriman, the chairman of London's South Bank Centre, And you watch the video, basically, he goes in and he finds this picture and he's saying it's offensive because it's a sort of a plantation and it's slavery and it's people like him being forced to work by a white...
There's the image.
Man. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there it is. Now, my only problem here is he films it. He said it was incredibly triggering imagery, and he filmed it and told us, I mean, I'm like, I'm not saying it's amazing, but they're not necessarily advocating it. It was just a picture in a shop, and I think it might be a bit overblown, dare I say.
So this is a place called Farrance in Cobham. What do you think about this one, Josh? He says it was triggering... And also that it should never be there, because this shop apparently largely sells toys, family things, but there is a tobacco room at the back of the shop.
Yeah.
And, you know, this shop dates from over 100 years ago, and the idea is that the tobacco room is about the history of tobacco as well, so there's images...
Maybe if that photo had been there for 100 years, but it hasn't. This isn't the first time that this has been brought up. So in 2020, and the owner said that they would change it, and they haven't. It just seems like a very weird hill to die on. You know
OK, but there is an interesting detail about this, which the Guardian article does not mention. Now, why did they not mention this? That photograph has a poster next to it explaining the context, explaining that it was taken at a plantation in Cuba in 1907. And it says, and I quote, "Unlike other crop harvesting industries, the tobacco plantation owners of Cuba refused to use slave labour, insisting on an employing free men." Those aren't slaves. And that and it's made clear in a post. Now, why? Now, look, I'm not talking about whether the image is triggering or whatever. Why does the Guardian omit that rather important detail to this story?
I think you've asked your...
It was a rhetorical question, everyone.
But, I mean, I wonder if they put that up instead of then getting rid of it. Like, someone complained about it, and they were like, let's give it some context. It just seems unnecessary.
It's
I don't know
great,
why.
but don't you find it odd that... It's not great, but don't you find it odd that we're in a world where you can... In South Africa, they're killing people every day because they're white. And the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, has brought attention to it, and no one cares because it's white people. Isn't that strange? I'm not saying this is great either, but it seems minor in that kind of context.
Well, I mean, look, my issue is...
Two things can be bad.
It's not,
they can both be bad.
But it's not a photograph of slaves. I think that is my...
I guess what, as it was also... But it was also pointed out in this article that it is that there was basically indentured... workers afterwards.
There were,
who,
but they weren't in this photograph.
But he's he just.
But I don't know if it was on.
Doesn't need the small.
But I don't know if it was on a profit share. You know what I mean?
We don't know the details of the employment. You're right. You're right. We should look into that before making judgment. OK, well, that's all for part 3. Join us in part 4, where we'll be queering the Mary Rose. We'll talk about Shakespeare in small doses and the power of rebranding. See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Thursday's newspapers. Let's get straight back into it with Thursday's Times now. Now, what's this? Museums, Josh.
Story of the night.
A mad museum.
Story of the night. Mary Rose Museum under fire for queering its collection. So let me just read this first head. I don't like to normally read but this is brilliant. An octagonal mirror, some knit combs, a ring and some prayer beads. Are these simply the personal effects of the poor souls who were lost on the Mary Rose? Or are they gateways to the world of 16th century queerness? Now, that is a sentence you ain't going to hear pre-2020.
So the Mary Rose, obviously this famous ship, I've been to see it myself, the 16th century ship, and it's basically a blog, isn't it? There's a blog that's been put on the official museum website where they are queering knit combs and octagonal mirrors.
But there's a movement within wider museums.
Yes, it absolutely is.
To bring these elements to it. So this is written, and so people have seen this stuff and gone ridiculed it. Professor Philip Hensher, who's an academic, and it says here quite in big thing, who is gay. Yep. Everybody, so he's allowed to criticise it. He's gay, and he just says they're mental.
He does. Now, Nick, you know, when they're queering the mirror, the octagonal mirror, they talk about how queer people today often have hair, and we wear our hair as part of our identity, and this is the most tenuous of connections imaginable.
That's the knit comb one. The mirror one is my favourite one, which is, it says, here's a mirror, right? And then it goes on and says, for queer people, we may experience a strong feeling of gender dysphoria when we look into a mirror. That's how tenuous it is. Here's an old mirror. Mirrors trigger us. It's like, it's beyond the joke. It's beyond brass eye.
I thought it was a joke.
Well, I'm triggered by the knit thing.
The knit comb.
Because as I said here, for Queer People Day, how we wear our hair is central pillar of identity. That's what got me into this debate, because they're baldest, essentially.
They're baldest.
I'm not allowed to be part of the whole queer movement because I have no choice.
There is a real anti-bald element to the gay.
So this is written by Hannah. She's described as studying a master's degree in public history. So I'm very scared because in a couple of years she will probably be making up the curriculum that's going to be teaching our
This is the problem. All of this stuff, I mean, you're right, it's not just one museum. This is really endemic in all sorts of museums. They're trying to sort of bring these ideologies, these ideas into this area where it just doesn't belong, and it's laughable. It's good that we're laughing at it, though, right?
But it's also scary because when does it become truth?
OK, right, we're going to move on to this story now. This is The Telegraph. And Nick, shall I compare thee to political censoriousness?
You can. This is Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. I'll tell us who wrote it. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, cancelled by DeSantis' Don't Say Gay law. So the so-called Don't Say Gay law, which is kind of mischaracterised by the left, is the Parental Rights in Education Act. But they're perhaps misusing it, let's say, perhaps an overreach of the law, because they're saying that Romeo and Juliet is a problem because they have premarital sex, which obviously is bad and you should all repent. But it seems like a silly use of the law. My question here is, are sort of lefties who hate Ron DeSantis doing this on purpose to kind of deliberately misuse the law to make it look silly? That's my question.
I was going to ask that because this law apparently has been misapplied all over the place. This looks like, I mean, the idea of banning Romeo and Juliet in a school, of all places, sounds like it is trying to test the absurdity of the law that DeSantis has put down. Is that what's happening here?
I think that's exactly what's happening here, because it also runs contrary to the school district, the education minister, who put out a thing saying that over the summer you should read Romeo and Juliet. So I think they're absolutely doing that to make a point. And as you say, it's the so-called Don't Say Gay law, but it's not really about that. It's because there were inappropriate books placed within school libraries.
Yes.
If you look at some of the excerpts, and really it's not about the gay families and whatnot. It's really all about gender identity and the sex sexual elements that were placed.
There were some pornographic elements in there.
Basically.
And so people have said this is about DeSantis saying you can't say gay. No one's ever said that. In fact, that phrase.
But I think the thing is, then the Republicans brought that gay element into it, and they basically thrown the baby out with the bathwater, which is a lot of people, gay people who are protesting or fighting against this gender ideology have sort of said, look, this is the problem. If we're tagged in with these guys, this is the bad stuff that's going to happen.
On the other hand, Romeo and Juliet, you know, Juliet is 13. She's underage. So there's that element. There's a filthy play. Mercutio's lines are particularly filthy, his imagery. So, that, you know, maybe there's a point. Maybe it is disgusting.
Yeah, I would ban it.
Ban it. Right, we're going to move on now to Thursday's Daily Mail now. And Josh, what's this about? Wife beaters.
Oi, oi, oi. Gen Z. God, how many stories now start with Gen Z? Gen Z influencers rebrand the wife beater vest a wife pleaser.
Doesn't even make sense.
This, I know, on TikTok, in solidarity with domestic violence victims amid the Me Too movement, which is nice to see that that's still a thing. And yeah, white vests, they're coming back into fashion. The 90s is coming back into fashion.
Right.
And this is the item of clothing, it's this white vest. Why not just call it a white vest? I don't know why you would call it a wife pleaser, because all it really does is show your gut.
No, but isn't the wife beater phrase because Marlon Brando wore it in Streetcar Named Desire?
Yes, and it says here that because he hits his wife Stella and he raped his sister-in-law, and I was like, spoiler alert.
Yeah,
he didn't give me any warning.
Ruined Streetcar Named Desire. But Nick, if you call it a wife pleaser and you're saying that it originated from Brando's performance in Streetcar, aren't you saying that wives like to be beaten?
That's what I read from it. That's what it sounded like to me. It doesn't even sound politically correct.
That's what got you excited about this.
Of course. I was like, can we cover this? I was emailing everyone. No, but wife pleaser, exactly. It makes it sound like beating is pleasing. Because it's just classic, it's just changing the language, but it doesn't change anything
white
else.
racist as well, calling it white? They have an element. They haven't mentioned that element.
I mean, probably. Don't give them ideas, Josh. I mean, the point about this sort of stuff is that there's a real literal mindedness within this whole movement, this need to sort of change any language that might cause offence. We know it's called a wife beater, but no one in their right mind thinks, oh, well, that's going to incite the beating of wives.
Or that you're saying it's good to beat wives. Although
it depends if you get it dirty or not.
The only part that bothers me is they're saying that it's got a prejudice against working class people is implied. So that's when I start to go, actually, maybe that is a point. And get on my sort of state school high horse.
Is it working class people only who wear wife beaters? Is that the point?
Well, it says that it could perpetuate stereotypes that working class men are more likely to commit violence. Yeah, because it's saying they're saying they wear the vest. I guess that's implied. I don't know.
OK, maybe that's it. OK, well, we're going to move on to the Telegraph now. Anti-sexism beach patrols.
The problem... Oh, sorry, it's you.
No,
it's
I mean, you're both experts.
I was so excited about this one.
I know, Josh. It's a big topic for you, but you'll get there in a minute. The problem with being a woman on the beach, that's not me saying that, that's them. So... there's this thing, they're calling it safer plage, because that means beach. And what you'll have is you'll have these people that will patrol to see if any women are being harassed or bothered. And
this is in Nice, right?
Yes.
Or in France?
Sorry, in Nice in France, yep. And they're called beach mediators, and they're dispatched, one to reassure the woman, the other to tackle the accused. I don't think literally. And, of course, they could just say, mate, and they deal with it straight away. Everyone knows that works.
In French, like...
that works.
Meat.
Exactly. And sounds a bit like
me and
meat.
OK, what do you think about this, Josh? I mean...
surely this is what France is all about, isn't it?
What's catcalling and that kind of thing?
Some romantic kind of...
Josh, do you think that... I mean, the woman who wrote this thinks it's a bit patronising.
This woman who wrote this is all over the place. She's like, you know what, I love men ogling me when I had a fit body before I had a baby, and but maybe it's bad and whatever. But the gist of it is there is this app. If you are being hassled... Now, there's a difference between checking people out. We all check each other out. That's what people do.
On this show.
I check you.
Now I feel
people
violated.
Are watching us. People are checking us out.
Don't look at me, Josh.
On the beach, even when people are unattractive, people are like, oh, yeah, he's got a big tummy, or she... You know, you check people out.
I don't go on holiday.
Yeah, that's what people do.
I haven't left England for 5 years.
Because there's nothing else to do unless you're reading a book. And I will finish your book, by the way. But on the beach this summer.
Mate.
But what I'm trying to say is that this app is actually like when you're getting properly hassled. So if you're getting hassled, you can just click on this app. Someone's going to come over and say, look, mate, you should really...
But if you're being properly hassled, I mean, that's against the law, isn't it? You can go to a police officer.
Well, I mean, I don't know where the line is between sort of like going up and saying...
It seems a bit authoritarian. You click an app and two French blokes appear and, like, just take you away in a van.
I think look, this does happen. In an ideal world, young men would be taught to not...
Well, they are, aren't they?
Like well, I don't know.
Well, they should be. OK, we're going to have a quick look at this story in the Metro, Josh. News from far, far away.
Indeed. Discovery on Mars suggests the red planet could have been home to alien life. This is hot off the news that Mars is spinning faster.
Yes.
That was a big story. But now it turns out that they had conditions favourable to prebiotic evolution, which is my favourite techno band. And and this is something I didn't know before, that Mars most likely had an atmosphere, but because of the gravity or whatever, over billions of years, it sort of dissipated into space.
So they could have had alien life 3 billion years ago.
Exactly, but it would have been like little organisms.
Nick, I'm sure you don't have much to say. Space bores you, doesn't it?
It bores me, but it does, and our producers are trying to hurt me by including it. But I don't really believe all this. This idea that we're billions of years old, it's an attack on Christianity. It's unproven.
You think the Earth is only 4,000 years old at most?
Evolution's never been proven, Andrew.
I know. It's like you're starting the dinosaurs again in a minute.
Well,
mate,
to that.
Watch out, Matthew Sweet is clipping that up. Right?
Yeah. OK, well, look, the show is nearly over. But before we go, we're going to have a quick look at Thursday's front pages. And so the Daily Mail are leading on Thursday with, have we finally turned corner on mortgage misery? The Guardian is running with, cost of living crisis forces student COVID generation to live at home. The Daily Express is leading with, threat to quit rights treaty if Rwanda blocked again. The Mirror has ITV hit by more bullying claims. The Eye is running with, new talks on tented camp for migrants in Essex amid Tory splits on crackdown. The Metro has BBC comic held for historic offences. That's all we've got time for, but thank you to my wonderful guests Josh Howie and Nick Dixon, and thanks to Josh for wearing that lovely cap. Leo is here tomorrow with Lewis Schaefer and Paul Cox. That's at 11 o'clock. And if you're watching Headliners at 5 a.m. in the morning for the repeat, please stay tuned, because now it's time for breakfast.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It is briefly warmer, temperatures reaching mid to high 20s, plenty of sunny spells. But there will be some rain moving into the far west later on Thursday. Looking at the bigger picture, a brief spell of warmer weather, but into the weekend, this area of low pressure starts to move in, introduces something a little bit fresher, particularly across the north and the west. So looking at the end of Wednesday, still some cloud across western areas.